All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Don, my name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the streets of Fairfield City. We are very humble and grateful that Tom Shippenseal accepted our invitation to the show. Tom, welcome to the show, man.
Hello, hello.
Um, in the last 2 years, we've been living in crazy time with the pandemic, the vaccine, and people believe in it. Some people don't believe. Many people were affected. So how you manage? Were you affected? How you holding up with the crazy 2 years?
Um, First of all, I wasn't infected until a couple of months ago,
Yeah,
uh, and that happened during the tour we did, the last tour we did with kayak,
yeah,
and so we couldn't really finish the tour, which was a pity because we were already in Norway to do the final show. But we couldn't get out of the bus, so the singer was infected. And then, well, if you're with 15 or 16 people in a coach in a bus, well, there's no escape infection. So, well, that was a pity. But before that, we were my wife and I, we were clean and no problems. Just well, the band couldn't play, which is of course a pity, but I'm always a busy guy, so I can always find things to do. And especially the first year, I liked the peace and quiet. The less traffic, less stress for everyone. We went for a walk, and it was fine. But of course, as a musician, you also want to play, and that was impossible.
right. Yeah, if you're on the tour, you don't have money, coming in to pay the bills, and so
Yeah, 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 sure.
you can always find a studio work, right? I suppose.
Yeah, well,
So
it costs money too, but it's you have to find solutions, and in some way, when you're forced to find a solution, many people will find a solution. It's just, well, the thing with most musicians is that they want to play, and if they can't and make a living, it's difficult. Yes.
let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when perhaps you began taking piano lesson or guitar lesson? How were you and how difficult was it at the beginning?
There's a musical tradition in the family of my mother. My mother wasn't a professional musician, but she played violin in amateur orchestras, and the family from my mother were professional musicians. So maybe that's my background in a musical way. And I started having piano lessons at the age of 6. And but I was always very bad with notes, learning the notes and playing the sheet music. I always preferred to improvise and play whatever I liked to play. And so after a couple of years, I lost interest, and I kept interest in music, but not, to learn and study the notes. And then after a couple of years, when I was 14, I started playing. I was asked by someone, if could you play the piano or the bass, and I tried, and it worked. And so I took up lessons again, and because now I saw why I would need it, and
Sure.
I did a combination of improvising and study, and slowly but surely that developed into other bands and professional study at the conservatory, at the music academy, and where we met other guys that later joined kayak.
I got you. And then what kind of music were you listening to when you were in the equivalent of high school here in the United States? When you were, I don't know, 15, 16, what type of band were you listening?
My first band was a very amateuristic band. We played everything from the Girl from Ipanema to John Mayall. Didn't really matter. It was just sort of exercise for me. But after that, I started playing the bass guitar in a band with Pim Koopman, the later drummer of Kayak, and a guitar player. And we played Jimi Hendrix and Cream and all that sort of stuff. And in the meantime, I listened to all kinds of pop music. I even had my own hit parade, you know, my own charts, and I,
Really?
I spent more time listening to the radio and doing my own charts than study at school. So and then at a certain point we developed the band Kayak, and I was still I was going to the music academy then, playing piano, but my main instrument was the double bass.
Yeah.
Classical double bass, and for me it was more a method to a way to escape my school. So my parents said, well, you can stop school, because I didn't do anything, and they said you can leave school, but you have to find something else to find a direction, you know, to learn a trade. Then I thought, well, I'm playing bass guitar in a band. Why not, you know, study a double bass? Because I also liked classical music. I never intended to become a double bass player, you know, in an orchestra, but it was a way to escape my school. And well, there we met other guys that later joined Kayak, as well as Pim Koopman, who studied there too. And then the band Kayak, we became too busy with all gigs and shows and venues, and so I had to stop the study with double bass. But I still have, you know, I did learn to play the classical stuff, and learned how to arrange for strings. So it was very useful. But I prefer to do my own music.
I get you. And then when you guys begin the first band, when you were rehearsing and taping, you used like a reel-to-reel tape recording, cassette. What was the medium to record at the beginning?
In the beginning, well, before the band Kayak started, we did all sorts of recordings at the house of Pim Koopman, the drummer. His father had a Sony a 4-track recording. Well, it was sound on sound, actually. It wasn't 4-track, it was 2-track, and you could, you know, dub the sound and add an extra layer. But after 3 recordings, there was a lot of hiss. And but you know, we learned to record things, and Pim's drums were in the living room of his parents' house. So it was a very nice time to start and learn the music and the trade.
Yeah, and then in '72, you know, for what I read, the music in Holland was very vibrant. There were, you know, bands like Focus, Earth and Fire,
Yeah.
Exception,
Yeah.
many progressive rock. So what was the motivation to form Kayak at the time, early at the beginning? You know, there were many like Focus and Earth and Fire, many great
Yeah.
bands out there. What was the motivation for you guys, young
Well,
kids, to form?
Well, of course, those bands inspired us too, because, you know, we were a couple of years younger than Focus and Earth and Fire, like 4 or 5 years younger. But of course, you know, knowing that they could play that sort of music and do shows in Holland, it inspired us to do it as well. But we didn't want to copy their music, you know. Of course, they have influenced the band. They had a lot of influence on Kayak, but we also listened a lot to other, you know, progressive rock bands, and like Yes and Genesis, of course, you know, they were a big inspiration for us. But to know that in a small country like Holland is, you know, at the time there were like 13 or 14 million people, and that it was possible to make a decent living, that was a good, you know, good to know. And so we were glad to have been given the opportunity to develop ourselves, and we got a record contract with EMI, and we made our first album in '73, and, you know, from then on we just continued to grow.
Yeah, in Italy at the time, remember, there were so many Italian bands, all the progressive, like Banco and PFM and Premiata, and there were a lot of very progressive music, yeah, like you said, Genesis and Yes, and many great bands. So for a young kid, you know, it was, you know, good to listen to the radio at the time, and, you know, get a hold of, you know, who is playing. I was able to listen your first four album, the one from 72 to 76, they are remarkable. I mean, they are very, very important. How do you see now in year 2022, if you look back on the stuff, anything you would have changed, or how difficult or easy was the first four album to put it together and tour and record?
In a way, we didn't see how difficult it was. And we learned by doing it and making mistakes and then trying to correct it at the next album. And of course, I mean, if I listen back, I can hear how we developed, how we grew. And the first album was a collection of songs that we have made in the 5 years before that. So we were like a kid in a toy shop, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
We tried to. It was like an explosion of creativity, the first album, but it wasn't really balanced. We just wanted to go in the studio and record and have fun and do what we thought was great. But of course, if you listen back, you hear the mistakes and the producing things that could have been better. But the energy and the enthusiasm is still there, which is very important for those early albums.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but every album was different for me from the one before. And of course, there's a certain style and a certain direction, but each album is different.
Good. And then were you guys making enough money to survive, to live on your own?
Well,
doing some gigs?
That's one of the things we would have done differently now, because we basically we were like 20, 21 and almost living at home with our parents, so we were supported. But after 2 or 3 years, you have to do it yourself. Of course, you can't stay living at home forever. So, but we had a manager, and well, in the beginning, it was all very nice, and but he made a mess of our financial situation. So in the beginning, we could live fairly okay from the money we thought we earned. But later on, it appeared that he did so many things wrong, and it was a really a bad situation for the band. 5 or 6 years later. So well, you live and learn. That's also on the financial side. And that's one of the things I maybe would have done differently now. But when you're 19, when you're 20, you don't know anything about the business. You don't know. And if you have a manager who is, he is very enthusiastic, but he makes a mess of the money, it's not until years later that you find out what went wrong. So you trust him, and he does things for you, but he made a mess of it. But at the end, we were happy with the way it developed, and we had our chances. And he did a lot of good things as well. He was a very innovative person. He thought of commercial plans for the band, and how to present ourselves, and how to get a contract in America, for instance. And that was the good side. The bad side was we didn't earn. But okay, it's one of those things. Many bands have this problem.
Yeah, it's hard. I hear for many bands, it's hard to trust someone with you're young, with your finances, and how much money are you charging per concert, and how much money is coming in after taxes, and how much money are you putting away for the next gig, and so on.
Well, we were depending on our manager, and he did strange things with our money, but we didn't know. And later on, the tax comes, and the tax man says, "Well, you've earned so much money." I said, "No, we haven't." "Yeah, you did. It's here in the books." Well, that's all. That's the kind of thing that every band has, and
yeah.
And the problem usually is that as a band or as an artist, you only have one period where the success is very, very big. It's very hard to repeat it. So if you want to make money, and it happens in that period, and afterwards it was a bad period financially, then it's very hard to come back from that.
Totally.
But
You learn from it.
It's all very, like 30 years in the past, 40 years, I don't care.
And then another two great albums, Starlight Dancer and Phantom Deny, for me are unbelievable album. But at the same time, you guys were going to many changes in the band.
Yeah.
So how you manage to, well, new people coming in, and you have a success from before, and then you became starting at the time where a lot of commercial success. How you manage the changes within the band to commercial success, if you will?
Well, it was not planned. You can't plan a commercial success. We had a huge lineup change in '78 because our singer Max Werner, he decided he didn't want to sing anymore. He didn't like to do stand in front of the stage and do the lead vocals. He hated his own voice. He said, "I want to drum." So we gave him the chance, and we had a huge lineup change. And all of a sudden, with the right song and the right lineup, suddenly it was a commercial success. But for me, at that moment, it was just the next album. And, it wasn't planned. You can't plan a #1 album. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was a big change after 5 or 6 years of trying to find our own to do our own music and find a way, to satisfy the record company because they want to have sales. I understand that they pay the money for the studio, so they want to earn some money, and we as well, of course. But you can't plan a success. But suddenly it was we had the right hit single in Holland. And well, the album went to #1, and I don't know if we wouldn't have had that big hit, if the band would have survived. The record company spent a lot of money, and I can imagine that if it wasn't a big success, they would have said bye bye, Kaik. We try another time. But so, and well, we've always had a lot of band changes and changes in lineup, and I don't know why. It's just the way things happen. So, some people leave because they have other plans in life. They want to do the music anymore, or whatever, or you get a fight, or it's all 10 reasons for people to leave, or they say, well, I can't go on, I want to do something else in my life. Well, it's all fair, and we you can't predict it. So it's if you want to go on with music, you have to find substitutes and people that want to go in the band, and we've always been able to find the right people.
Yeah, at the time it wasn't that difficult to, whatever, a bass player or a drummer leaving. It wasn't that difficult to.
It was difficult when the lead singer.
Yeah,
that's a band is very much identified by the lead singer. If the lead singer says, "I want to quit," you have a problem. So, but in the end, it turned to be a very positive change. Yeah. So, but we wouldn't have expected that. At the moment, we had a big problem because the record company had, our manager had organized a tour in America. And then we had to say, yeah, sorry, we don't have a singer. So, and in this business, you have to take the chance when it's there. So that chance went away. So, but luckily, we had our big moment, our big years in Holland. So it was a good replacement for the fact that we couldn't go to America. But so it's always when in life, when one door closes, another door opens.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. The album, the Berlin album in '81, that's a very, very good recording. I really like that album. And after that, soon you guys end up splitting up, right? After the Berlin.
After Merlin, yes, we did one semi live album. It was played live, but it was in the studio, and because we had to fulfill our contract with Phonogram then.
Yeah.
And So, but the band was really, you know, after Merlin, it was, there was no band anymore, not really. So, but we fulfilled our contract, and that was that.
Yeah, I got you. And then after that, you know, feel free to now to elaborate. After that, you end up joining Camel, and you end up, you know, part of the composition participation in the unbelievable album, Stationary Trouble. You know, feel free to elaborate there. What was the process like at the time, and so forth, with playing with Camel and Mr. Latimer.
Well, to me, it was a very big surprise that he called me, and he called me, and because, you know, Camel has always had many lineup changes as well, just like Kayak.
Yeah.
But he knew me because we had the same record company in America, Genesis Records. And, you know, the label manager from Genesis Records, he sent me Camel albums, and he sent Kayak albums to Andy.
Oh,
so
I see.
So that's why he knew us. And well, one day he called me. He said, "Are you interested to play keyboards on this album and do a tour?" I said, "Yes,
Of course,
of course." And you know, I had work in Holland. The band had stopped, but I was doing a lot of studio sessions and playing live with other people. So, but it was a very, well, you know, positive surprise that he called me. And I think, you know, I liked the Camel stuff very much. I didn't know all the music. I know, but I heard a lot, and I thought, you know, I could understand why he asked me, because, you know, our styles are there is a similar kind of style between our playing, and so we went on tour in '84. And I really enjoyed that. And we've been in contact ever since. I didn't always play in the band because, you know, I have a problem with flying. And of course, you know, that's the reason why I didn't play all tours. And I said, I'm sorry, I want to do Europe, and I want to do in a coach, but I'm not flying to South America or Japan. And but I appreciated that he always came back to me when he was only playing Europe.
Yeah. You mentioned Latin America. I was born in Chile.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've been there. And I came to the United States to study after high school. So, and yeah. I mean, well, it's a personal question. I'm not going to ask you about if the flying wasn't an issue. You are very good at what you do, Don. And if the flying was an issue, your life would have changed, you know, to, I don't know, maybe yes or no, but, you know, it would have created a lot more opportunity in your life, going to, like you said, United States or Latin America or Japan, that you guys, every progressive band at the time were very popular in Japan. So it would have been different, but.
I know, but that's, you know, that's it's no crying over spoiled milk. It's
Right.
the way, and, you know, I've had a very good career. I'm happy with what I could do, but you're right. There would have been other possibilities also with Kayak, you know, and but that's the way it is. And
yeah, that's the way. I like I think you're the author of the song Afterwards, and it's a typical melancholy classic song for Camel, right?
Yeah, it was very. I didn't especially. Well, I can tell you, we were in Andy's house, you know, recording Stationary Traveler.
Yeah.
And most of it had, you know, Andy had already done most of it. And I was just, you know, improvising in his studio on the piano. And I think Andy was downstairs, and then he came up. He said, "What are you playing there?" I said, "Just a little, you know, improvisation half. It's not finished. This is an atmosphere, an idea I have." He said, "I want to use that." Okay,
Wow.
good. Well, so that's how it ended up on the album.
Yeah, unbelievable. And sometimes for you know, a moment of, in between tracks or a cup of coffee or whatever.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
how it
hear a
started.
good idea, then, oh, I want
Yeah,
to use that,
yeah,
You got to be
it
receptive to
wasn't
it.
my intention, to play something and hoping that it would end up on the album. I was sitting in the studio and playing for myself, really. But
Yeah,
yeah, but, we liked it, so that's how it
yeah, right.
ended up.
The album that I really like is also the Comeback Camel 1991 Comeback album, Dust and Dreams. I think the album was started that in '85, but it was abandoned for several years. And I wonder if you can, elaborate on what happened, what at the time when, it took so many years to
Yeah,
release that album.
you'll have to ask Andy. It's Camel, it's his band, and I know that Andy had a lot of problems with the immigration and back to England and back and first to America, and
Yeah.
so it wasn't really easy for him to record. But we worked at a distance. I recorded my tracks at home in Holland, and I sent them over to America, and he used it on the album. So he asked me to do certain songs, and that's what I did. But don't ask me why it took 6 years to make the album. That's Andy's thing.
I need to get a hold of Andy. Andy is very stay out of the public side, so
I know he's hard to reach for
have to reach.
I know.
But I will find him soon. I love his music. I love so many bands. And after you work in the '80s with Camel, you became another member of another great Dutch band, Air on Fire. Feel free to elaborate on how the process was together, how difficult it was to put a new band, what was the motivation to join that band.
Again, like with Camel, I was asked. I already knew Bert Ruiter, the bass player, and Journey, and the singer, and the other guys as well. But the old band Earth and Fire had stopped. The two composers of the band, the Gerard and Chris Koerts,
Yeah.
you know the names? Well,
Yeah, I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, they stopped, but then Bert Ruiter, he said to me, well, we've got a lot of requests from the to play live again, and because the brothers don't want it anymore. Would you like to play with Earth and Fire? I said, yeah, why not? It's good music. So and so we played a couple of years in Holland, and some Belgium gigs, I think, and then we also made an album, and because he needed compositions. He asked me and my wife Irene, she wrote the lyrics for compositions for the album Phoenix, and so we did it. And but Earth and Fire wasn't my band. It was the band of Journey and Bert.
Yeah.
And they were the boss, and they would decide which songs would be on the album. So, but again, I enjoyed working with them, and good musicians, and we did a lot of live gigs, and but that also ended. So yeah, well,
Fortunately, yeah. And I noticed that you have a long-standing relation with Andy, from the album, I don't know, Rajaz album, and then you guys, they were very alike in music from my point of view. He participated in a couple of Kayak albums. How do you see the commonality between Kayak music in a way and Camel music, although they're different bands and the tracks are different? They were, for a listener, from my point of view, right? There was a lot of commonality there. It was both great bands. Yeah.
There is. The main difference is that there's a musical similarity between the two. There's a certain kind of style that matches. It's easy for Kayak to play for Andy to play a Kayak song, and it's easy. Well, not easy, but it's for me it's very logical to play Camel songs. But one of the main differences is that Camel is a lot of instrumental. And Kayak has a lot of songs with a lot of vocal.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've, you know, every now and then I do write an instrumental piece, but it's not a majority. And with Camel, the majority is instrumental, and the guitar is leading. The guitar is the voice of Camel. And we've always got lead singers, and they changed a lot, of course. And the guitar is not as dominant with Kayak as it is in Camel. That's the main difference. But the musical approach is very similar.
I got you. And in 2000, you guys have the comeback album, The Close to the Fire, which, in my opinion, was the best album of Kayak history. You know, feel free to elaborate on how the reunion came together to put Kayak again, and how difficult or easy it was to, you know, create an album and then begin getting together again, and then bringing the magic back.
Yeah, well, we Pim Koopman and I had always stayed in touch, but he, you know, he had done a lot of other things, a lot of productions, and I've been concentrating on writing for theater. Of course, I had bands, but you know, it was not important. My main work was writing for theater, and like musicals or you know, background music or whatever. But in the course of the time, you know, the 90s, I've written a couple of songs, and I thought, well, it would be nice, you know, to maybe start a band again. And as Pim Koopman and I had always, you know, stayed in touch, we thought, well, let's try it. But you know, in '95, there was no record company who was interested in Kayak. We were old. We were, you know, it was not interested. They were not interested anymore. So it took 5 years to get the demos to a company that was interested. And singer Max Werner, who he called us. He said, "I've heard that you've recorded some demos. Can I try it?" So I said, "Yeah, well, no, why not? You know." And as soon as he started singing, we knew we can call the band anything we like, but it's Kayak. You know, there's no escape. So that's the point in, you know, in '98, '99 that we started to restart Kayak as in a way. But that only lasted 1 year. You know, after that album, it was finished with the singer. He couldn't go on. It was too much for him. He had a lot of physical problems, and so. But you know, we really enjoyed that doing that album. But it took a lot of years before we actually made it into a real album. They were like 5 or 6 years old, the songs on that album.
Yeah, got you. Yeah. Looking back at your career, I mean, you have participated with Kaya, with Camel, with Air on Fire, and so many other, you know, bands. What's the motivation for you, Tom, to keep on producing good music and good music? It would have been kind of easy to give up and do something else for a living or whatever, but you keep on, you know, let's put this kit together.
You're wrong there. It's not easy to give up and do something else when you've done something for 40 years.
That's the only thing you know? Or?
It's not possible to find another job, you know, when you're 50 or 60. Try to find another job. So you've only, you know music, you know, that's the job, and that's the work, and that's the hobby, and that's your life. That's your passion. Well, my main motivation is creating music, and something, you know, make something that wasn't there before. That has always been my motivation. And you know, I think I could live without playing live, but you know, not creating, that's more difficult for me. So well, my motivation was creating something that wasn't there before, and I had a band that was playing it, so that's why we kept on going.
Gotcha. How important was the working with Inside Out Music since the album 17? You know, the Kayak signed a contract with the company. Inside Out was I suppose that looking back in your life was very, very important at the time, right?
Well, it gave us a lot of more exposure
Right. Yeah.
worldwide because they have a big machinery behind what they do. They can organize interviews anywhere and in magazines and whatever, and distribution all over the world is much easier. So in that respect, our name was known better than before, because many people still don't know about kayak, and I don't know why, but it's just a matter of how the promotion of your band is very important, and with Inside Out it was possible to reach a broader audience.
I got you. Yeah. So more
So
exposure.
in that respect it was important. And we also went on tour in Europe, which didn't, we only played in Holland and sometimes in Belgium, but we were restricted to, a very small audience. And then we got a chance, to go to Sweden, to Germany, to well, whatever, England, and that was nice too. So it was a very positive vibe for the band, to work in. In the end, I don't know, money-wise, it's not much better with the company, because you earn, you have a broader audience, but the revenues are less. And we always, we released our albums ourselves, so per CD, per album, you earn more. But it was a good time with Inside Out, and they did a lot of good things. But it's ended now, and it's fine.
I get you. And then I was listening to your solo album, Le Carnaval des Animaux, and to the latest, the Velvet Arbor. Those are very, very good albums. So you still, many still have the magic, and how. So you keep on working, you keep on work. I don't have a band, I don't want to play live, but I want to, I'm a musician, so I need to create, and start putting the music. Those are very, very good albums. How receptive were those albums in the market, I suppose?
Well, they were, I don't know about Carnaval des Animaux. That's a long time ago for me. And that was like a little side step from kayak. I still had kayak.
Yeah.
And it was like, this was the Carnaval des Animaux was a piece, a classical piece that I played when I did the music academy on double bass. There were ensembles and combos that played classical music, and I was part of that. And I thought, well, it would be nice to have a pop version of Carnaval des Animaux, and that was the reason behind this little sidestep. But after that, I did Heart of the Universe with Chris Rainbow.
Yeah.
I was very glad I could ask him, because I've always been looking for singers, and he was perfect. Well, and then in 2013, I did my first, well, not my first, but a very important album for me, the Lion's Dream, which is the one before Velvet Armor. It's the same idea musically, and that's going back to my classical and Baroque and folk roots, which I have. And I got the opportunity to do that, and I didn't listen to or I didn't care about if it was commercial. I just did what I thought I had to do, and that's the main reasons for those albums. This is something that is a big part of me, the classical side, and the medieval and Renaissance and folk as well, and I combined that into some pop arrangements, and they were more personal albums than kayak albums. Kayak is always a band, and you divide your creativity between the members of the band.
Right.
But this is, if you listen to Velvet Armor and the Lion's Dream, that's me. Whatever.
That's your stuff. Yeah.
And of course, if a band would play it, it would be sounding more like kayak, of course. But yeah, it's a different approach, because when you play with real musicians, you know, of course, I played with real musicians, flute and violin, fiddle, whatever. But in a band, you have to consider, well, this is the band, and they will sing and play it. So that's the way you write as well. You think this is the way I want to have to make it sound, and you are constricted to the band. You know, they play a certain style, and that's it. And I found that you know, all the little escapes I made on Kayak albums, people expect a certain sound, a certain approach, certain music. Every now and then I try something else on a Kayak album, and the problem is that not many people, not many fans understand that. And for me, that's a pity, because it didn't allow the band to change. You know, every change for fans is difficult. They expect what you already did. But
The old stuff. Keep on doing the old stuff, right?
well, I make similar albums, but it's impossible for me. I mean, what's the use of doing two Starlight Dancers? What's the use? You know,
Right.
I want to develop, I want to create. And so every album will be different, but in a band like Kayak, you know, you have to make a certain amount of albums. You have to sell. It's not just a hobby, you know. The studio has to be paid. The musicians have to be paid. And so it's always a consideration. Of course, I follow my musical heart, but still, you know, there's a band involved. And on my solo albums, it's just me. And I ask for certain things. I ask certain people, but
Sure.
they're not in a band, you know. I ask them where they need it. So it's a different approach.
Mm.
But, you know, I like both, you know. It's just you can't really compare it, but it's just it's only the same creator behind it. That's the
Yeah. You mentioned the album, the 1984 with Chris Rainbow from Cameron. That's a, you know, that's a beautiful album. Very, very nice. Very, very good album.
Thank you.
You know, I liked as well. And in 2020 you participated in the Guildmaster project.
Yeah.
Together with a member of Samurai and Rafael Paca. Feel
Yeah.
free to elaborate, or
Yeah.
because you're combining folk and rock element there.
Yeah.
You know, feel free to elaborate on the idea.
In a way, it's a bit similar to Velvet Armor. I've used a couple of musical ideas that were used on the Samurai of Prague and the Guildmaster albums for my own album, because, you know, I was working on that, and Kimmo, he asked me, can you write something for us? I said, yeah, I've got this. So and I played it in my studio, and the fun thing was that 2 years ago we both had a house in Greece. I was living half of the year I was living in Greece.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, and he lived like 2 hours drive from us. And so we went for a visit to him, and it was very, very nice. But it was a surprise, because he comes from Finland. He lives in Greece for most of the year. I come from Holland. I lived in Greece. There's an Italian, Marco, who lives in Finland. So, but it was nice to work on that album. Yeah, on those albums, and especially because they asked me to write something. And if you ask me to write something, I do that.
Any looking back in your Kayak career, any particular album that you are looking back more satisfied with, or, well, there are different albums, but anyone that they look back and say, man, that was, from Tom's point of view, that's the best album that we ever had or we ever did?
I think from the first period, I think it's Royal Bed Bouncer. For me,
Yeah.
that's the first adult album, if you mean adult grown-up album.
Grown-up album, right? Yeah.
Adult album is something different, but it's the first album that we were grown up. You know, we were developing our own style and not copying, you know, the grand old bands from those days like Yes or Genesis. and we never intended to copy them, but of course you hear the influences in the first albums. And with Royal Bad Bouncer, we found our own voice, I can tell you. And the funny thing is that with Bouncer, the record company wasn't happy with the sales of the previous albums, you know, the CC the Sun and Kayak 2. So they send us back to a studio with only 16 track. We always worked on 24 track, and they said, no, you go back to the 16 track. It's cheaper for us, and you do that. You record the album there, so we could do less overdubs. But in the end, it was a very good thing to do, because the album has a lot of energy, and we had to, you know, restrict ourselves to. In the arrangements, we couldn't, you know, do 1,000 overdubs. It was limited, and in hindsight, it was a good idea. So
okay. Yeah. But
you know, the second part, I think, in a musical and also lyrical way, I think the two rock operas were our best, Nostradamus and Cleopatra.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was my next question. You have Nostradamus, Cleopatra, Merlin, all they're that masterpieces, those albums.
Thank you. Yeah, we tried to change, you know, we tried to broaden our horizon. We wanted to play in theaters, and you know, our music can be very dramatic and very theatrical. And we wanted to use that, you know, and make a rock opera that we could also perform live, if money would allow it, with an orchestra, whatever, and lots of staging, and that was our idea to work from. But well, money was a problem, I can tell you. But as an album, I think those two, especially the last two rock operas, were belong to our best work.
Yeah. And you also have done over 50 musicals, right? For you, yeah. Theater and film scene have been very, very important. You want to continue doing that?
I still work for one theater.
Yeah.
In Holland, there's a tradition on stage. It's called the cabaret, but it's not the cabaret that you will understand. There's usually it's one guy. In my case, it's one guy who tells a story. And it's like a stand-up comedian, but not really. You know, he tells a story. It's not only jokes. He tells a story from beginning to the end, and there's also music involved and songs, and he's singing. And he is basically the most popular guy in his field in Holland. So he's playing 4 nights a week, sold out in Holland. You know, in Holland alone, in Belgium. And I have the luck to be. You know, he asked me. In 1984, he wasn't very well known then, and he was making an album. Bert Ruiter, you know, he produced this guy, Joep van het Hek, and we got in touch, and we talked, and he was doing his first solo program then in the theater. He asked, "Can you make music for me?" I said, "Yes, of course." So we try, and that's. Well, that's 36 years ago now, and we still, you know, we have, he's done like 25 programs since then, shows, and every program does a couple of songs and a lot of music for me. And the next 1.5 years, I will be playing with him live on stage. That's my touring.
What about music for commercial soundtracks? You have
not so much. I did a movie in Holland called Spetters, but no, I've been mainly working in the theaters and for writing for musical and for family shows, you know, for musicals that were designed for the whole family, so from children to grown-ups.
Yeah.
And I've done lots of those, and it was a good, you know, nice to do. I was able to be creative, you know, and it was. I don't do it anymore. Only the guy that I just told you about.
Yeah.
But I did lots of that, and well, it added to my experience as a musician, as a composer. because you
Any
know, yeah, those musicals, you know, they are not your typical musicals, but you know, sometimes the story is in the in medieval times, or in Spain, or it could be in Russia. So all that kind of music I explored, and I used it in the musicals.
Okay. Any possibility of bringing kayak back again, or is
We just stopped.
tough?
No, we did our last tour in May, so it's August now. It's a bit early to talk for about the comeback. At the moment, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe, you know, for special projects, it's possible, you know, to come together and do something. But, you know, just do a new album and a new tour, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, you've been collaborating with Andy for many years, and actually Camo will start touring in next April or May in Spain. I think they will start in April, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed Colin Bass, and he told me, yeah, I think they will start in Spain. And do you, since you get along very well with Andy, is any possibility of the two of you,
I
you
don't
know,
think.
doing some
No, well,
recording?
you know, they have a very good keyboard player, Pete Jones. He's fantastic, and
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah.
well, you know, he flies. So they will go everywhere with him, and I don't expect them to ask me to play along, you know. And on top of that, you know, I have my work here, and I have 1.5 year touring in front of me after September, you know, in Dutch and Belgium theaters. So I don't even think there's time for me to do it if he asked me. But I don't think he will ask me. It's a 4-piece band, and he's happy with the current lineup. So
Yeah.
asking me is a problem, I think. You know, it takes a lot of organizing. I could be a guest, you know, if I'm here, maybe, I don't know. But you know, I'm not part of Camel anymore.
I got you. I got you.
In my head, I am, but you know, in reality, I'm not.
Yeah, hopefully I will have the opportunity to talk to Andy one day, and because I think he's a hero of mine as well. So you will start the tour, you say, in a year and a half, in the fall, September?
Yeah, but only
Yeah.
Dutch and Belgium theaters, you know, with this cabaret.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in the background, you know. But it's very nice work, and it allows me to do other things as well. And so yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I will have the opportunity to see you playing. I never saw you playing with kayak, right? But
You should have
hopefully I
come.
will be able to see you
You should have
playing.
come to Europe.
No,
Yeah.
I go to Europe like 3 or 4 times a year. Mostly,
You should have seen us then.
yeah, mostly London I go to see.
Okay. Well, we've played in London 2 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have but if I don't see you with the kayak, you know, I may see you with the cabaret thing, and
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
if they continue, and so your journey is like it's like a good bottle of wine, a good bottle of Chilean wine. You're getting better and more refined with time, man. So that's the
Thanks a
beautiful.
lot. Thank you very much.
It was it was very nice talking to you, Don. Good luck to you, and I hope to meet you one day, and I see you playing live somewhere. And
It's my pleasure.
thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.